For Night Gallery, the orchestras were never large, as Laird noted.
On one episode, we may use as many as 30 musicians. But on another show, for instance, I once had nothing that would work, so I came up with the notion of simply using guitar and brought Bob Bain in to do the whole job.
Laird's notion was inspired. Robert Bain was one of the most in-demand session guitarists in the industry, utilized regularly by the likes of Henry Mancini and Frank Sinatra. He clearly had ambitions to compose. His segment, an adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's horrific short story, Cool Air, benefited immeasurably from Bain's solo guitar. The resulting piece, full of Spanish accents, greatly underscores both the love story and the elements of suspense and horror with equal success.
Another one-off music score was the Tune and Dan's Cafe, a mid-season sleeper that featured an endlessly repeating jukebox tune, If You Leave Me Tonight, I'll Cry. To everyone's surprise, the song generated a hugely enthusiastic viewer response and became a hit record. Lyricist and script editor Gerald Sanford, by his own admission, tossed off the two verses in a matter of minutes. Hal Mooney, Night Gallery's music supervisor, composed the tune, arranged it, and began casting around for an appropriate singer, one who sounded like the late Nat King Cole. Jerry Wallace, who had signed recently with Universal affiliate Decca Records, seemed to fit the bill.
Dubbed Mr. Smooth, Wallace was best known for his 1959 top 10 hit, Primrose Lane. He began his career as a purveyor of pop and rockabilly tunes, and he had been trying to crack the country and western charts since 1965 with only sporadic success. He seemed a perfect fit for the smooth pop style that Mooney had initially intended. The final version, however, was not in the style in which it was originally recorded. Director David Rollins explains,
They had a song, but the rendition was rather pop. It was presented to me, and I said, "Can we rearrange this? I wanted to make it country and western." And they said, "Sure. We've got the vocals separated from the rest of the orchestra tracks, so it would be a simple matter." Production assistant Tony Redman helped me put that together because he was the only one who understood what I wanted. We took the normal orchestra on the set that day, told them to play fiddle instead of violin, and made a western band out of these studio musicians. I wanted it to sound more like Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys than anything else.
If you leave me tonight, I will cry. Though you say we will soon meet again, for the hours I've spent here with you are like words from a poet's pen. Words like love and truth and goodness, words like till death, till death, till...
When the show aired, the tune became an instant hit. Radio stations were swamped with requests the next day for that song from Night Gallery, which of course had not been released as a single. Rollins continues,
The fan mail they received at Universal was enormous on that particular segment. The people in the production office just sat there, scratching their heads, wondering what happened. Of course nobody got it, because nobody out here was listening to country and western music at that time.
Universal quickly seized on this opportunity. Jerry Wallace was flown in to re-record the song, which was hastily rearranged to include a backing choir for a more heavily countrypolitan style. The resulting single entered the country music charts on July 15, 1972, and remained for 17 weeks, with 3 weeks in the top spot. It hit the Billboard pop charts in September for a 2-week stint at number 38. The tune appeared on Wallace's new album, To Get to You, with the singer personally requesting that the song title and the jacket sticker read as follows. From Rod Serling's Night Gallery, The Tune and Dan's Cafe. Wallace declared,
"It was the greatest song I have ever sung." After it became a #1 seller on the country western charts, Hal Mooney said he would never have believed it, that he was a pop orchestra leader, yet he had written a country western song that made it to the top of the charts. Another musical gem on Night Gallery came by way of Oscar-nominated film composer Lalo Schifrin. Schifrin was already a big name in the industry, having composed the hugely popular theme for Mission Impossible and scored hit movies like Cool Hand Luke, Bullet, and Dirty Harry. He was never actually hired to produce a score for Night Gallery, however. The score in question was a pre-existing set of music cues Schifrin had composed for a 1965 feature Jack Laird produced for Universal Studios, Dark Intruder. The plot dealt with a consulting detective in 1890s San Francisco, helping police hunt for a monstrous serial killer. Schifrin had delivered a pulse-pounding score of brooding power and bold orchestral colors that translated ideally to Night Gallery's sound world. Most of the cues were re-recorded and reused liberally in several late-season Night Gallery episodes, including The Ghost of Sorworth Place, Last Rites for a Dead Druid, and I'll Never Leave You, Ever. Seeking variety to suit his concept, Laird continued his composer hunt. At Gil Millet's suggestion, Laird contacted Eddie Sauter. Sauter came to prominence during the swing era as arranger for Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw, and Red Norvo, and later became co-leader of the popular Sauter-Finnegan Orchestra. His unique scoring for the Stan Getz album Focus, and his music for Arthur Penn's experimental noir Mickey 1, suggested to Laird that he was up to the task.
For Night Gallery's second season, Sauter scored 4 segments. For Brenda, a peculiar story about the growing friendship between a little girl and a wandering garbage heap, he composed a gentle theme to represent the main character's sense of childlike wonder, which then mutated into a taunting playground sing-song to underscore her impish antisocial misbehavior. Jack Laird praised its qualities in an interview from the period, pronouncing it
absolutely marvelous. Eddie created a particular sound to represent the girl, something light and airy, and another sound, a contrabassoon, for the creature. It was sort of like Peter and the Wolf, and that was rather fitting. He just understood right away what was required.
Using harmonica and harpsichord to give a sense of time and place, Sauter also tried his hand at Americana with his thoughtful score for The Dark Boy, the touching story of a meeting between a frontier schoolteacher and her ghostly new pupil.
The final episode of the second season yielded brilliant back-to-back chillers, The Caterpillar and Little Girl Lost. And The Caterpillar must surely be considered Sauter's finest score for Night Gallery. It tells the story of Stephen Macy, an expatriate Englishman hired to manage a tobacco plantation in Borneo, who falls for the owner's wife. Lovesick and desperate, he hires a local thug to arrange the husband's assassination utilizing a local pest, a deadly species of earwig, by inserting the bug into his ear canal. The plot, of course, boomerangs back on the plotter. The score is steeped in Javanese gamelan modes and instrumentation, aptly chosen for the play's setting, creating an exotic palette that provides ornament to Macy's unwholesome character, the torture of his ordeal, and the grisly manner of his fitting end. The percussion, a shimmering mix of tuned gongs, bells, and the dry clack of hollow bamboo, emphasizes both the alien culture and the undercurrent of sensuality that runs through the story. Laird was effusive. I would say that since my early experiences with Lalo Schifrin, Eddie Sauter is the best intuitive dramatic composer I've ever worked with. He's just dead on. I was concerned about him because Eddie is so malleable, such a gentleman, and I didn't want him to get out here and be destroyed by the system.
But as it turned out, Sauter was more assertive than Laird gave him credit for. While visiting one of Gil Millet's scoring sessions, Sauter was harshly critical of the music, flooring the other composer. Millet had suggested Sauter to Laird in the first place, causing him to regret his advocacy. Adding insult to injury, Sauter campaigned to replace Millet's distinctive Night Gallery theme with one of his own, a crusade that ultimately succeeded. When the third season rolled around, there was no sign of Millet's theme. In fact, there was no sign of any other composer. Sauter advanced to become Night Gallery's house composer for the final season of the series. Although Sauter produced impressive work in the second season, his scores for the third season represent something of a falling off. It's possible that the pressure of composing every score became a creative drain. Perhaps what was missing was the stylistic variety achieved in the second season by a more diverse roster of composers. Whatever the reason, the music quality suffered. For much of the series' run, however, Laird's choices paid off, with music of exceptional quality, of a highly varied and inventive type, reflecting the producer's wish to serve the drama best.
There's no limit to the importance music can take on, particularly in a dramatic sequence where you have no sound effects and no dialogue. In any case, given a choice between sound effects and music, the music is more likely to make it every time, provided you have the right people to handle it.
From the evidence of the distinctive night gallery sound, it is manifest that Laird found the right people.